Hi, everyone. I'm Carly.
And I'm Sophia.
And this is Away She Goes, a podcast from girls who travel.
Each episode will help you feed your wanderlust with travel tips, stories, inspiration, and more. Away she goes.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Away She Goes. Today, Sophia and I are talking about a really popular topic, what it's like to work as an au pair abroad and kind of what that entails. I know that a lot of people in the group ask questions like this, kind of similar to the episode that we did recently with Arden about teaching English in another country. So we're going to kind of dive into what this looks like and how you can go about doing that for yourself if that's something you're interested in. So before we really get into it, what is an au pair for people who don't know? So it's like a light version of a live-in, like a full-time live-in nanny. Usually au pairs are on the younger side, between ages 18 and 30. They're usually more integrated into the family. And Sophia, you'll give us more details about this. The good news about being an au pair is there are people with children who have a lot of money in every country. So you really can be an au pair in almost any country. It's not as limited as even like teaching English or other jobs that you can do abroad. It's something that you could pretty much do almost anywhere. Like I said, basically a live-in, like a light version of a live-in nanny. So mainly you're looking after children and doing light housework, probably like dishes or, cleaning up after the kids, something like that, taking care of any pets. And a lot of people do this as students. They do this as like a part-time job while they're studying abroad, either as a student or taking language courses. So, Sophia, you actually have experience doing this, which is why we're doing this episode today. So I'm going to stop talking. What did your typical day look like as an au pair? Where were you? Obviously, you are from Germany originally. What country were you in? And what did like a typical day look like for you?
So I was an au pair pretty much exactly 10 years ago. And I did that in London, in England. I also applied to be an au pair in the US, but we'll get back to that later when we talk about the agencies that you can use to find a family. So my typical day looked like sometimes I got woken up a bit early by the kids because I forgot to tell them where I put something and they needed that for school or something. Entirely my fault. And it's so funny because you get woken up and you're speaking in a language that isn't your mother tongue. And it's just such a unique and weird experience at first. But then you get used to it fairly quickly. I'd usually in the mornings, I had my language classes because I went to an English language school where I did the Cambridge exams, CAE, CPE, and also IELTS, which is the one for university. Usually I also have lunch, then a quick packed lunch at school, then take the bus back home, pick up the kids from school, and depending on the weekday, we'd play at home or they'd play with the neighbor kids and I just sit there and supervise. On some days I had to take them to ballet lessons, for which we took the bus. I know from some au pair friends in the US that usually the family provided a car for them because you had to drive the kids everywhere.
We don't have good public transportation.
Yeah, no. And while I did find it quite stressful because the bus were usually quite crowded and I had two kids that I preferably placed on some seats so I didn't have to watch them not fall over in the bus. So it was a little bit stressful, but then still I prefer that to driving around a probably busy city. So then on some days I made dinner, on other days I had dinner with the family. And then on some evenings, I think in my contract it said a maximum of 2 evenings per week. I would have to, or I could babysit. And then for additional nights, I would have to be paid extra, which rarely ever happened. My family was usually, the parents were back in the evening.
So that's where I think it's definitely different than what some would consider like a full-time nanny where you're making
Yeah.
every meal. You're always with the kids 24/7 every night a week, that kind of thing. It's definitely you have more autonomy and like you go to your classes and you still kind of have your own life outside of it.
Yeah, you really do. And at the
Okay.
same time, you're still like a bit more integrated in the family.
Mhm.
Yes, you're kind of working for them, but then also, like, I usually had Friday night dinners with my family because um, they had Friday night fish and chips. So then they would run out to like the local award-winning fish and chip shop in the area and get enough for everyone. And yeah, I even visited them a few months ago when I was in London because
Oh,
yeah, it's nice. It's
yeah.
weird because it's been 10 years and
Yep.
the kids still talk the same, look quite similar. Like the speech patterns, I mean, I don't
Yep.
mean the same topics. Um, but then they're so grown up, it's a weird feeling. Highly
Yeah,
recommend it.
I have somebody who I used to babysit for also just, yeah, 10, like 9, 10 years ago now. And she lives in the same neighborhood as my parents. And so I see her quite frequently and her two kids who I babysat starting when they were 4 and 6. They are now 13, 15, 14, 16 in that age range. And I'm like, they look the same thing. Like they look very similar. They talk exactly the same. And I'm like, and then we're playing Cards Against Humanity. And I'm like, and they're
Oh,
they're
that's
like
dark.
with their mom and they're asking me like what does this mean. I'm like, ask your mother. Like I'm not getting paid enough for this, but it's weird because yeah, like I helped you get off the school bus when you were 4 years old and now we're playing Cards Against Humanity
Yeah.
because you're 14 and you know all these things now. And I'm just like, oof. Anyway, so something I think a lot of people are curious about is how much does one make as an au pair? Obviously, again, it's not full time. You're doing it in conjunction with other things. Is it enough to support yourself on, or is it more just like a little extra money in your pocket? So, and obviously now in recent years, like things have changed in terms of money, but if you could give us kind of an estimate on how much you make and what people could expect to make.
Yeah, so first of all, let me tell you that usually you shouldn't be buying your own food. Usually, food and accommodation is provided by the family. So yeah, maybe your lobster dinner, like you have to pay out of pocket. Also, if you like go out and eat with your friends and stuff, that's also not covered. But then when you're at home, like sandwiches and stuff like that, and your usual food and what you're eating with the kids, should be covered by the family. Um, and in some cases, you also get a phone contract with them or like some way because you usually, depending on the country you go to, need a new SIM card for your phone. So you need a new phone number and stuff. And sometimes you're covered under the family data plan. Sometimes you have to pay for that out of pocket. It's usually not a big deal. You don't have to pick the most expensive contract. Um, so yeah, then your wage will be either monthly or in my case in England, it's kind of, I looked up a table online where it says like how much is the average in different countries nowadays. So I highly recommend if we're not naming the country you want to go to, just Google au pair salary country and that list should pop up. Um, and everything was listed by month, and then England and UK was listed by week, and I was like, that's weird. But yeah, nowadays in the UK, you get paid around £90 per month. Per month, sorry, that's my bad. £90 per week, so that's like 360 per month. Back then, before inflation, I was paid £70, so that's 280 per month. And I also looked up in Germany. Apparently, we have a law, so it should be at least 280 euros per month. In the US, it's an average, and I think you also maybe have a law about that, if I saw that correctly,
Probably.
which I find fascinating because you don't have minimum wage laws, but you do have for foreign au pairs. Like it's very kind of you
Yeah, isn't it
for
so generous?
foreigners, but not so nice for your locals.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's around 800 US dollars per month.
That's a
And
lot. Okay.
Yeah, and from that you'll pay, or you'll have to pay your school or university
Mhm.
classes. Um, and then, for example, if you're German like me and you do this right after school and your parents still get child support from the state, they will continually getting that child support if you enroll in classes. So the classes then pay for themselves through government child support, which is funny but kind of nice. And
Interesting.
you'll also have to pay for transport and stuff like that. So the way I did it, I was very, very frugal back then. I mean, I still am now, but so I managed to pretty much stick to the budget I had, and I didn't really drain my funds that I
Mhm.
had, um, because I got a monthly bus pass. In London, it's much cheaper to have a monthly bus pass than have a monthly zone card, with which you can take the trains and the tubes and the buses. Um, it does take you longer to get places, but if you have time and not money, then yeah. Also, happily listen back to our episode on traveling on a budget
Oh, yes.
if you need some more tips on how to, um, yeah,
Can't
do
forget
that.
that.
Yep,
So yeah,
exactly.
it's considering that you're not paying for most of your food and for your
Yeah,
accommodation, which are like mainly and obviously in Europe, like my three biggest expenses are where I'm living, my car payment, because where I am outside of a big city,
yeah.
we
You
don't have
wouldn't
public
also have that as an au
transportation
pair.
worth a damn at all, and then food. So considering that two of the three are covered and the third one where you are is not as relevant,
Yeah,
it's a pretty decent wage, I would feel like.
it is. Yeah.
Okay. How long did you au pair for? And are there different, I'm sure there are different lengths and stuff that you can do.
Yeah, I did a whole year, which is the most common I find when talking to all my friends that did it. That a year is very common because that way you get to know the family properly, and it does get a whole lot easier, kind of. And you start to feel like you're part of the family and stuff like that. And I highly recommend doing a year. You can also probably do 6 months. And sometimes families also just look for a summer holiday au pair. Someone I knew did that for a couple of summers in France for just like, I think maybe a month, maybe 3 months. I think France has a very long summer vacation. So yeah, you can also do that. And typically, it's not just a year that starts at random. Usually, it starts with the summer holidays, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
or around that time. So usually, July to September or something like that is prime, depending on where you're going, of course, is prime au pair season, and that's when you would want to find a family because that's when there's more families to choose from.
Got it. Okay. Um, how does one, so this is what I'm sure everybody's wondering is, this all sounds great. This sounds like it's for me. I can travel, I can make money, I can integrate myself within the home of a family in another country. How does one do this? How does one get started? Because I feel like, kind of like Arden talked about with teaching English in Japan, it can be kind of daunting of like, where the hell do I start? So how do you start this process?
The easiest way you can go is through an agency. These agencies will help you find families. They usually have websites that are a bit like dating profiles, where you have a profile, the family has a profile, and then you try to find a good match. Yeah, so I was listed with two different agencies, one for the US, one for the UK. And before you pick an agency, do your research. And nowadays, there's a lot more agencies than there were back in my day. And there's lists that are like, these are the 5 best au pair agencies, and it'll tell you the countries that they offer families in. And um, there's Google reviews and all that jazz for everything. So make use of that, because the US agency that I used, called Cultural Care, was trash. Um, they asked me to change a lot of minor details about my profile for so many times. I think I spent like 2 months editing my profile that I never got to the point where it was finished and I could search for families. And
Mm.
by the time I had very well graduated and was panicking, I was like, well, this is not going to happen for me.
Wow. So it like hindered you and
Yeah.
in the fact that you couldn't you wow. Okay. Hey, a cultural care sponsor us. Your trash sponsor us.
Yeah, and I also have a friend who was with them, and that's also a thing you want with your agency. You want them to have local correspondence. You want them to have like emergency helplines and phone numbers, because you're in a foreign country by yourself, and you're probably I at the time I was 19, and it's a bit scary. It can be a bit much, and I had a friend who had problems with her family, and she called the agency and they had her back in the hostel within a few days. It was
Wow.
all very quick and easy. And yeah, I really liked the agency that I used for the UK. It's called Invia. It's really weird. It's like German speaking au pairs. And it's just for I think the UK, and I had a friend who went to Spain. And the best part about that, because then the next thing is you have to choose your family, and you should definitely meet online or in person. Because I met my host family in person, because the concept of the agency that I went with to London was that they ship you to London on a specific date, and you get there, and then on the second day they give you the family dating profiles kind of, and then you get to pick which one you would want to visit first. And if the family agrees when they see your profile, then you go visit the family at their house. You see how they live, and you can interact with the kids and everything. And I found that super helpful.
Mhm.
And the fun part is, I only got shown my family because I had listed under my special qualities that I know how to play the flute and some other musical instruments. And my family on their sheet, like they had loosely mentioned, but apparently on their profile, it was put with an exclamation point for some reason. That they wanted someone that can read music to help the child that was learning piano at the time.
Mhm. There you go. See?
Yeah, so put all your special interests on there, because it can help make you unique and make you connect with the family. Um, Also, if you can watch the children play, you know, the way that they behave and that they're not too bratty, because you're just the au pair.
Mhm.
You're the person, you have all the responsibility and none of the authority, is what I kind of like to
Yep.
say.
Yeah.
Because yeah, at the end of the day, they're not your children, you're just looking after them. And so if the parents have some rules that you in your core do not agree with, then that's your problem. So
Mhm.
best not to choose a family like that, is what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha.
And then also one of the perks of going through an agency is that they have contracts and rules about the amount of hours you're supposed to work per week, the amounts of evenings, and stuff like that.
So one of my main question, and I know this is going to be different somewhat depending on where you're coming from, where you're going, that kind of thing, but visa requirements. Obviously, going somewhere on a tourist visa or not needing a visa at all for a vacation is one thing, or being there on a student visa, which it sounds like is what you would be as a student. But how does that work with the fact that you're still working and you're making money? Like, what kind of visa do you need? Do you need a special contingency on your student visa, or like, how does that work?
I, for one, didn't need a visa at all, because at that point, England was still part
Was in
of
the
the
EU
EU. Yep, exactly. So I had the right to roam.
anymore?
Yep, mother truckers. Um,
Yeah.
why am I not swearing?
I don't know. We have an
Whenever
explicit rating.
yeah, I was going to say whenever I
Let it
upload the
out.
episode, I just rate it explicit so we don't fuck up and don't like,
There it is.
yeah,
Fuck.
exactly.
There, now we both said it.
Yeah, perfect. Um, yeah, and since usually one of the requirements is that when you go work as an au pair, you also take language classes or college classes, which isn't really like putting you towards a degree. It's more of
Mhm.
a recreational, but you have to have like a minimum amount of hours. So usually, as far as I know, all of the cases you're going on a student visa.
Okay. And I know, I work in higher education here in America, and obviously all of the universities I've ever worked at have international students, and they are able to, with some limitations, with some restrictions, have jobs
Yeah,
also. So
exactly.
obviously it's, I've seen too that it's possible that even though you're on a student visa, you still to a point can be working and be paid even if you don't have a work visa specifically. And I'm assuming that's something that the agency will work through with you, and they'll figure out all the logistics for
Yes.
you. Yeah. All right. Any I see you added another point for requirements.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Because I was just thinking about general requirements when you talked
Oh,
about
okay.
Arden and teaching and how you need to be a native speaker. Like you don't need a degree or anything,
Yeah.
but you do need to be a native. And that got me thinking about the requirements because you don't really need any formal requirements. Depending on the agency, with cultural care, I needed X amount of babysitting hours or of childcare hours,
Okay.
which luckily I did an internship in a kindergarten and stuff like that, or I think you call it daycare in the UK, in the US.
Depends on the age. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think for you, kindergarten is where children learn stuff. For us, kindergarten is where the child is like below the age of 5, and all they learn is how to hold a
Oh.
crayon properly and maybe draw the sun in the left-hand corner or some
Ah.
shit.
Okay. Yeah. See, for us, that's daycare.
Yeah.
Kindergarten is where you go when you're 5. Like daycare and like preschool is not required. Whereas like once you get to 5,
Hmm.
kindergarten is the first one that's required. And I always joke that kindergarten is like 0 grade because then you go from kindergarten to first, but kindergarten's
Interesting.
required. Yeah, I
Hmm.
know.
Anyway, so for some agencies, you need mandatory amount of hours that you worked with children. And for all agencies, as far as I'm aware, you need um, to have some letters from families that you babysat. And you don't need the hours for all of them. Like the one I used for London, I didn't need that. I just needed like an independent character witness. You will need your what is it called in English? The thing from the police that says that you don't
Background
have any.
check.
Yes, you need the criminal background check.
Yep.
Um, and I think as far as that goes, that's usually it. Just some
Okay.
letters and that. And um, it doesn't hurt to speak the local language, but then again, it also depends on the family that you're going to, because my agency strictly only um, worked with German au pairs. So, for example, my host family, my host mom is German. So they wanted a German speaking au
They
pair.
wanted someone who could speak
So,
German. Okay.
yeah, so you would speak German and English both to the children. But then I also had a friend who went to multiple families and in the end didn't find a family because they said her English wasn't good enough.
Mm,
So you kind of need a certain level um, to communicate good enough with them.
okay. All right.
Um,
So pretty basic requirements. And again, it
yeah.
sounds like getting involved with an agency will help with like the nitty gritty and kind of figuring
Yes.
out the specifics. So before we end the episode, Sophia, what are your tips for somebody who is looking to kind of break into this, looking to get into this line of work?
Well, first of all, make sure it's what you like. It is light. Well, it is really just light housework, and that part is like, who likes light housework? But you'd also do that
Funny.
at home, so it's not that big a deal. Um, But then kids, do you enjoy spending time with kids, playing with kids? Because it depends on the family. I have some friends who mostly like looked after them and cooked for them, maybe read them a story here and there. But then I enjoy the playing part. I remember I have
I
vivid
always liked when I
memories of,
babysat.
yeah.
Yeah, I like playing with them.
Oh yeah, we played like nail salon and
Hmm.
everything. And to me that's fun. So
Yeah,
um
I agree.
yeah, if it's for you. Another tip is just to have luck, because that's what finding the perfect family is. It's just luck, like how that worked for me. And yeah, we had some wobbles here and there, but then we communicated and it all went well in the end. And I stayed for a whole year. Whereas I had other friends that had to switch families in between. And, that's not a shame. It's really hard to live with other people um, in their house with their rules. And um, it is still like it might be your first job coming out of high school or whatever. Um, it can be tough. So don't be scared to start the process of switching a family, or try talking to your host family about some issues that you have with the way that your life currently is. Um, that's all it comes down to. Um, Let me think about what other tips I have. Oh, yes, homesickness. So
Mm.
it might be bad. In my case, I've never really been someone that gets homesick. I think I disassociate too much for that. So out of sight, out of mind. Not really the most homesick person. And I tried calling with my family, usually like once a week or every other week or something like that. Also, video calls help a lot. But what I recommend most is to not go home within the first 3 months that you're there, because you're still getting used to everything. You're getting used to the food, the people, the public transport, the language. Um, but still, try your best, and also don't have visitors within the first 3 months. Your friends and family can visit, and I loved that. I loved everyone visiting, showing them around. Although at some point I was like, "You take your tour of Big Ben, Houses of Parliament in London. I'll stay here."
Hmm.
And literally,
Done
I
this
think
four times already.
yes. I think I put one of my friends in one of those tour buses that go
And just
around.
like, bye, see ya. Yeah.
Yeah, picture back up.
You might be
Uh,
onto something with a marketing campaign like tired of homesickness? Try dissociating instead. We're onto
yes.
something there.
Yeah. um, and then as far as travel goes, I highly recommend doing, well, also because then going home would be time that you could use traveling in the
Hmm.
country that you're in. So I highly recommend traveling whenever you can. So usually holiday weekends, when the family has time off, they'll spend it with the children. And if you talk to them early enough, and probably also best to get the calendar of the country on your phone, so you know the holidays far enough in advance so that you can make plans. Um, or also school holidays that turn into family holidays, because usually from at least from all the English au pairs I knew, none of us went on holidays with our families, and that was quite normal. But then my cousin went to the US and she went on holiday with her family. So I guess that really differs on where you are. But
Hmm.
usually that's a really good time to travel. Um, I did a really nice trip around the UK, like with train every day in a different city. So um, definitely remember to plan for that. Oh, and also a common thing that I really struggled with, because you had such a close knit network at home. You're in high school, you have all your best friends there, but then you're in a new environment, which is also why it's really good to go to language classes, or any college classes. Um, and first, try to make friends that are not from your home country, because that way you're practicing the language more. If I think I had maybe one German friend, and the rest of my friends were just Spanish, which was nice because we would just speak English. And
Hmm.
also, then later you can visit them in other places.
In Spain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's perfect. So I highly recommend that. And also a really silly rule that I had was to make weekend plans by Wednesday. Otherwise, it's
Okay.
too late. Monday, it's usually too early. But if you ask someone like on Thursday, like, what are you doing on the weekend? Can I come? Are we going to the pub or whatever? It's too late. Everyone will have plans.
That's me. I have to plan stuff. I am not a Friday night. Hey, what are we doing? No, I
Yeah,
need to
no.
know like 48 hours in advance.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, you know me, when I plan my trips, I book them impulsively. But when I plan, like
Oh, yeah.
I plan.
Hmm. Yeah, I think you showed me some spreadsheets.
Yeah, I have. Oh yeah, you've seen for one of my upcoming trips, you've seen my whole itinerary, you've seen my spreadsheet, you've seen all of it.
So, yeah, I think that's all the advice I have for you this episode. Thanks for listening. And I hope if you decide that you're going to be an au pair, I hope that you're going to have very good luck finding a nice family and that you'll have the best time.
I'm a little jealous. I never got to do this. I should. It's one of these things I'm like, I should have done this.
Yeah,
Our
I hear
our
that a lot.
so like in our most recent episode where we had Julia from Below Deck, that's one of my other career regrets is that I did not go into yachting when I was like 18, 19, right out of high school, because now I didn't know that job existed until a few years ago, probably. And now
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, should have done. Now I'm 28. I'm like, well, I'm not doing it now. Like,
And that's
there's,
still so silly of us because
I
we're
know, like I
still at
could, like,
it.
why couldn't I? You
We
know, like
could. We definitely
could,
could. I mean, if we
could.
were 50, we could still probably do it. But yeah.
Maybe I will. I always joked at my one of my previous jobs, I managed a bunch of students and they knew that I loved 90 Day Fiance and they knew that I loved Below Deck. And they joked with me, like when I left that job to take another one, they joked like in 5 years, we're gonna turn on the TV and we're either gonna see Carly on 90 Day Fiance or we're gonna see her as a deckhand on Below Deck. One of the two. And I was like, I would take either one of those.
Sounds good. Let's
Yeah.
make it happen.
That's what's in my future, apparently. That's all for this episode. If you'd like more Away She Goes in your life, make sure to stop by girlswhotravel.org/podcast. That's where you can fill out a form if you're interested in being a guest on the show. You can also write to us at awayshegosgwt@gmail.com or leave us a message on our Google voicemail from any phone or computer at 1-563-503-6323. To follow our adventures, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm at Carli Sees the World. Carli is spelled Carli.
You can also follow me at Sophia AEZ, Sophia with a PH. Away She Goes is part of Girls Who Travel, a community dedicated to radically redefining travel to be inclusive, sustainable, and empowering. You can learn more about GWT, find travel tips and support, shop travel-themed items made by GWT members, and join our Facebook group with nearly 100,000 women all around the world at girlswhotravel.org. We can't wait to connect and explore with you. Away she goes.